Have you ever paused for a moment and wondered if the events in your life, however ordinary they seem, are actually part of a grander design? What if those fleeting moments of clarity, those gut feelings, or those dreams that linger in your mind are not just random occurrences? What if they are messages directly from God meant only for you? As we begin this journey together, I want you to ask yourself, how often do I truly listen to the quiet whispers of life? You see, the universe speaks to us in ways we often overlook. It's not always a booming voice from the sky or a miraculous event that shakes the ground beneath our feet. More often, God's messages arrive in subtler, quieter ways, like a gentle nudge on your heart, a coincidence too perfect to ignore, or an overwhelming sense of peace when you make the right decision. These are the signs of your chosenness, the divine calling that sets you apart. But recognizing these messages is not easy. The world is noisy, chaotic, and full of distractions. To hear God's voice, you must learn to quiet the noise within yourself.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lessons.
I want you to think about this. When was the last time you felt a deep, unshakable conviction about something? That feeling wasn't just intuition, it was guidance. These moments are not accidents. They are God's way of steering you toward your purpose. But how often do we ignore them? How often do we brush them off as mere chance or coincidence? When you are truly chosen, life begins to feel different. You start to notice patterns. Maybe it's a number that keeps appearing, a song that plays just when you need to hear it, or a stranger saying something that feels oddly personal, like they've read the pages of your soul. These are not random occurrences. They are divine breadcrumbs, leading you toward the path you are meant to walk. But here's the challenge: recognizing these signs requires not just spiritual awareness, but courage. Because once you acknowledge these messages, you can no longer live passively. You can no longer ignore the call. And the truth is, many people aren't ready to embrace what it means to be chosen. Are you? Being chosen means you will feel things more deeply than others. It means you will wrestle with questions that others avoid. Why am I here? What is my purpose? What am I meant to do with the gifts I've been given? These questions are not burdens, they are invitations. They are God asking you to wake up, to see the world not just as it is, but as it could be if you stepped fully into your role. But how do you know for sure? How do you distinguish divine messages from mere coincidences? The answer lies in alignment. When something feels right, truly, deeply right, it will resonate with your entire being. It will feel like stepping into sunlight after years in the shade. This is how you know it's from God. His messages are never confusing, they are clarifying. They cut through your doubts and fears like a blade of light, showing you the way forward. And yet, these messages are not always easy to accept. Sometimes, God's guidance will take you in directions you didn't plan for, or ask you to let go of things you thought you couldn't live without. This is the paradox of being chosen. The path is both a blessing and a challenge. But remember this: God never calls the unprepared. If you've been chosen, it's because you already have everything you need within you to fulfill your purpose. So I ask you, what are you afraid of letting go? What are you holding on to that might be keeping you from hearing God's voice? Take a moment to reflect on this, because the truth is, God's messages often come disguised as loss. When something is taken from you, it's not because you've been forsaken, it's because you're being prepared for something greater. The job you didn't get, the relationship that ended, the dream that didn't materialize, all of these are part of the divine plan. They are not punishments, they are lessons. But here's the key: you must trust the process. You must have faith that even in the silence, even in the waiting, God is working. And when you begin to see life through this lens, when you start to recognize God's messages in the everyday, you will realize that you are never alone. You are always being guided, always being loved, always being prepared for something extraordinary. So as we end this first part of our journey, I want you to ask yourself one final question. If I truly believed that God was speaking to me, how would I live differently? If you're still here, I know you felt it, that pull, that inexplicable sense that life is speaking to you in ways you can't quite explain. You might call them coincidences or synchronicities, but in truth, these are the fingerprints of God on your life. Once you start recognizing these signs, you begin to understand that nothing is random. Every moment, every interaction, every twist and turn in your journey is part of a sacred dialogue between you and the divine. But here's the question that separates the chosen from the lost: are you paying attention? Let me tell you a truth that will change your life if you let it. God speaks to us constantly, but most of us are too distracted to hear him. We're consumed with worries about the future, regrets about the past, and endless noise from the world around us. But when you start to quiet your mind, when you start living in the present moment, you'll notice something extraordinary. Signs begin to appear everywhere. These signs can take many forms. Maybe it's a feather on the ground when you're feeling lost, a butterfly crossing your path during a moment of doubt, or a stranger saying something that feels like it was meant just for you. Maybe it's a sequence of numbers 1111, 222, 333 that keeps catching your eye. These patterns are not arbitrary. They're a language, a way for God to get your attention. And here's the most beautiful part: once you start noticing these signs, they multiply. It's as if the universe is saying, finally, you're listening, and the more you pay attention, the clearer the messages become. You'll find that certain events in your life feel orchestrated, as if they were planned just for you. This is the power of synchronicity, a divine alignment that can only happen when you're tuned in to the sacred rhythm of life. But let's not stop there. Recognizing signs is just the beginning. The real question is, what will you do with them? Too often, we see these signs and dismiss them. We tell ourselves it's just our imagination, or we're too afraid to act on them. But being chosen means having the courage to respond. When God sends you a sign, he's inviting you to take a step forward, to trust in something greater than yourself. And trust, my friend, is the foundation of any spiritual journey. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you trusted completely? Not just in God, but in yourself, in your instincts, in the idea that life is unfolding exactly as it should. Trust is hard, especially when the path ahead is unclear. But when you're truly chosen, trust becomes your compass. It's what allows you to move forward, even when you're afraid, even when the world tells you to stop. And yes, there will be fear. There will be moments when the signs point you in a direction you didn't expect, or ask you to take a leap you don't feel ready for. But here's the thing: God's messages are not meant to keep you comfortable. They're meant to wake you up, to challenge you, to push you toward the person you were always meant to become. Think about it. What would your life look like if you stopped playing small? If you stopped ignoring the signs and started following them, no matter where they led? This is the essence of being chosen. It's not about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about being willing to show up, to say yes to the divine plan, even when it scares you. And as you do, something incredible happens. The more you trust, the more the universe aligns to support you. Doors that seemed closed forever suddenly swing open. Opportunities appear out of nowhere. People come into your life at exactly the right time. But alignment is not just about external events. It's about internal transformation. When you start living in tune with God's messages, something shifts inside you. You begin to see yourself differently. You start to recognize the divine spark within you, that part of you that is infinite, unbreakable, and deeply connected to the source of all creation. And this, my friend, is the greatest sign of all, when you realize that God is not just out there, somewhere in the heavens, but also within you. Every sign, every synchronicity, every message is a reminder of this truth. You are not separate from God. You are an extension of His love, His wisdom, His infinite creativity. But let's be honest, living as a chosen one is not easy. You will face challenges. People might not understand you. They might question your choices or criticize your faith. But remember this: their doubts are not your burden to carry. When you are chosen, your path will often look different from everyone else's. And that's okay. You were not called to fit in, you were called to stand out. So I ask you, are you willing to embrace your uniqueness? Are you willing to walk the path that only you can walk? As we near the end of this part of our journey, let me leave you with one final thought: the signs you see are not just for you. They are also for the world. When you act on God's messages, you become a beacon of light for others. You show them what's possible. You inspire them to listen to their own inner voice, to trust in their own divine path. In this way, your journey becomes a gift not just to yourself, but to everyone you meet. So, as we move forward, I want you to think about this: what would happen if you stopped doubting and started believing? What could you create? Who could you become? If you trusted that every sign you've ever received was leading you towards something extraordinary. If you've made it this far, it's because something deep within you is stirring. Maybe you've been seeing signs, feeling nudges, or experiencing synchronicities, and now you're beginning to understand that these are not just random occurrences. They are messages, sacred clues left by God to guide you toward your highest calling. But recognizing these signs is only the first step. The real journey begins when you decide to live as the chosen one you are. Let me ask you something: what does it mean to live as the light in a world that often feels so dark? To live as the light means to embrace your truth, even when it's uncomfortable. It means to walk a path that others might not understand, to carry a purpose so profound that it shakes you to your core. This is the life of the chosen one, not an easy life, but a deeply meaningful one. And as you live in alignment with God's messages, you will begin to notice both the challenges and the profound rewards of this path. One of the first challenges you'll face is resistance, both from within yourself and from the world around you. Let's talk about the internal resistance first. When you're chosen, there's a part of you that knows it, that feels the weight of your calling. But there's also a part of you that doubts, that fears, that wants to shrink back into the comfort of the ordinary. This is the voice that says, "Who am I to be chosen? Who am I to carry this responsibility?" But let me tell you something: you are not chosen because you are perfect. You are chosen because you are willing. God doesn't call the flawless, He calls the faithful. Your doubts, your fears, your imperfections, they don't disqualify you. In fact, they are part of what makes you perfect for this journey. Because when you overcome them, you inspire others to do the same. The second form of resistance will come from the outside world. There will be people who doubt you, who criticize you, who try to pull you back into the safety of mediocrity. This is because your light will challenge their darkness. Your courage will highlight their fear. Your conviction will make them question their own choices. And not everyone is ready for that. But here's what you must remember: your path is not for them. It's for you. And while some will resist your light, others will be drawn to it. They will see you as a beacon, a guide, a source of hope in a world that often feels lost. These are the ones you are here to serve, the ones who will recognize your chosenness and be inspired by your example. And yet, being a chosen one is not just about inspiring others, it's also about transforming yourself. When you live in alignment with God's messages, you begin to shed the layers of fear, doubt, and limitation that have held you back. You start to see yourself not as the world sees you, but as God sees you, as a soul of infinite worth, with infinite potential. But this transformation doesn't happen overnight. It requires patience, faith, and a willingness to surrender. Surrender is one of the most difficult lessons for the chosen. It means letting go of control, trusting that even when things don't make sense, they are unfolding exactly as they should. It means understanding that God's plan for you is far greater than any plan you could create for yourself. Let me ask you, when was the last time you truly surrendered? When was the last time you stopped fighting, stopped resisting, and simply allowed life to flow through you? Surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means giving in to the divine wisdom that has been guiding you all along. And when you do, something miraculous happens. The weight you've been carrying begins to lift. The obstacles you've been facing begin to clear. And you start to move through life with a sense of ease and grace that can only come from walking in alignment with your purpose. But let's not romanticize this path. Being chosen also means confronting your shadows. It means facing the parts of yourself you'd rather ignore, the doubts, the fears, the wounds that have shaped you. This is not a punishment, it's a purification. God wants you to be whole, to be free of anything that would hold you back from fulfilling your destiny. And so, you will be tested. You will be asked to let go of the things that no longer serve you, to forgive the people who have hurt you, and to heal the wounds you've been carrying for far too long. These tests are not meant to break you. They are meant to refine you, to prepare you for the greatness that lies ahead. So I ask you, what are you holding on to that you know it's time to release? What would happen if you finally let it go? As you release the old, you make space for the new. And this is where the rewards of being chosen truly begin to reveal themselves. You start to see life not as a series of random events, but as a beautiful, interconnected tapestry. You begin to attract the people, opportunities, and experiences that are meant for you. And most importantly, you begin to feel a sense of peace, a deep, unshakable knowing that you are exactly where you are meant to be. This peace is not the absence of challenges. It's the presence of faith. It's the understanding that even in the midst of chaos, you are held, guided, and loved by something far greater than yourself. And as you continue on this path, you will discover the greatest reward of all, the realization that you are not just a receiver of God's messages, but a messenger yourself. Your life, your choices, your presence, they become a testament to the divine. You become a living, breathing example of what it means to walk in alignment with God's will. But with this realization comes a question: what does it mean to be a messenger? It means living with intention. It means understanding that every action you take, every word you speak, Every thought you think has the power to impact the world around you. It means using your gifts not just for your own benefit, but for the benefit of others. And so, as we come to the end of this journey, I want to leave you with one final thought: being chosen is not about being special. It's about being of service. It's about using the signs, the messages, and the gifts you've been given to make the world a brighter, more loving place. So I ask you, what message is your life sending to the world? And how can you live in a way that inspires others to recognize their own chosenness? The path of the chosen one is not easy, but it is worth it. It is a path of transformation, of purpose, and of profound connection with the divine. And as you walk it, remember this: you are never alone. God is with you, guiding you, speaking to you, and walking beside you every step of the way.